So you were talking about the tasks in Morgan, the taskbar at the top of Morgan, just to.
It's so fun. It's just fun. There is no practical reason for it other than it's fun and it brings me a tiny bit of joy. I mean, that pretty much sums it up. I'm just like very happily ticking these tasks off and just going, yes, yes, yes.
See,
Yeah,
with the fireworks, it's great, but it doesn't feel as satisfying when you see that progress bar go up. Like the progress bar feels more satisfying than the fireworks for me.
I've got to admit, yeah, I'm the same. I'm like, oh, 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 yay. Yeah, the progress bar is very, very nice. It is very, very motivating, I have to say. Very motivating. It is becoming more and more my favorite application to use. I had some conversations with people over the last week of like, so what are you using now? With just some nerdy conversations with someone in a PKM space. I'm like, well, I'm a Notion certified consultant who doesn't use Notion on a day-to-day basis. Oh, so you use Obsidian? I guess to a certain degree I use Obsidian, but really for my notes. Okay, so how do you do project and task management? Oh, all in Morgan. Wait, how? I'm like, sit tightly as I described to you the chaos that is my Morgan.
I think TFT Hacker mentioned this in a tweet recently that they've been trying to put the Notion tasks and the Obsidian tasks uh, together in a place where you can see it on a calendar. And
Yeah,
now with the Obsidian integration, obviously Morgan now has that. I don't think any other tool has a more Obsidian integration. So Morgan's got that unique, but then it's also got the Notion ones as well. So it's like you can see Todoist and Notion and Obsidian inside of your Morgan. Yeah, there are some
it's
other tools
such
that
a
do it, but
nice.
not as well, I don't think.
No, I think it does it really, really well, and it's just easy to work with.
I do have one slight issue at the moment with the taskbar, but the counting bar.
Hmm.
Because I have so many calendars, I have one calendar that is for like videos. Like I just push my 8 hotkey and it shows for videos because I don't want to show my calendar for all of the videos because sometimes it's a bit overwhelming because my calendar is blocked. And I have tasks in that calendar set, and those tasks count towards the taskbar. So I have to go to my like lunchtime duplicate calendar task event that I never go to just to tick it off so I can see the taskbar complete, which is kind of like a I wish I could filter it out, but I totally understand why it's there sort of thing.
Yeah, it would be really nice to have multiple task bars.
I think just a filter would work. I mean, the custom filters inside the sidebar at the moment is really nice. I'm
Oh
looking forward
yes. Yeah.
to getting the overdue, due today, due soon, and June, whatever it is. I'm looking forward to getting those automatic lists in there because once that's in there, I don't think I'll be using the main view. It'll just be filtered Morgan and Obsidian tasks.
Yeah, that would be so cool.
But yeah. Anyway, Morgan is not what we were meant to be talking about, but like, wow,
Why wouldn't we start with something that juicy? Because it
true.
is so much fun.
It is.
I got very excited because I saw in the Discord chat about custom statuses, and then I was very sad because I recognized it was just an Obsidian integration. And then I was like, hmm, maybe I return to Obsidian again for
What,
tasks.
what do you mean by custom status? Because you've got them with Notion.
I suppose I could use I because I think when we last chatted, I was debating going to Notion again and doing some project management pieces in Notion, which is completely not happening now because I basically made Obsidian do that. So I could use
Morgan.
Notion. Morgan,
Yeah.
yeah,
You said Obsidian, I was like, huh?
yeah, I
Yeah, because
know.
we had a chat
Apps.
after the last call because you said, "Oh, I might be going back to Notion." And then we had a chat after the call, off record, showed you how I did it, and you were like, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense."
Yeah, and I've just been using that ever since, which is great because I'm so glad I didn't try to set up a Notion after life events and everything happening all at once because I just would not have been able to keep up with any of it. So I'm just happy that I just can, option C, see my calendar, do what I want to do, and then leave.
Yep. I must admit, obviously, the last couple of weeks there hasn't been an episode, as people probably have noticed. Um, and I must admit, like the last couple of weeks, if I didn't have Morgan, I would literally be running around like a gerbil in a cage, like smacking my head against the walls. Like I would not know where I'm going, what I'm doing, and things would
Yeah,
have fallen apart, guaranteed. Or I would have been extremely stressed. Uh, but I'm
yeah.
not. I mean, yes, I'm a little bit like worked up, but that's because I've just started a business, like not an online business, an in-person proper coaching business with a
And
lot of
goodness me,
moving
an
things.
in-person business is a whole nother level of stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of red tape, policies, procedures, health and safety, and because I'm working with children and adults, DBS checks, all of that requires obviously government sanctions, or not sanctions, but government work, government sort of like tick box, yes, you've done this, yes, this is safe, etc. Then working with venues as well, working with equipment because you need actual physical stuff, especially in trampoline, you need like extremely expensive stuff, and you got to store the stuff. And you got to market it all. Yeah, it's much more hands-on than a digital business. But I mean, I've managed to do it in 4 and a bit months, 4 and a bit, almost 5 months. Managed to start a
Yeah,
Eastbourne
that's really
trampoline from
interesting
like
because I know
nothing
we've been talking before, and it took another person nearly 3 years, the person that's local to me,
Ooh,
multiple years.
to get a dedicated center. Yes.
Ah, it's the dedicated center. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's the difference. So, and this is one of those things that if you're not in the trampoline world, which most people aren't, it's hard to grasp. So
Mm.
I guess I'll give it a little bit of a context. So, for those looking into trampoline, there are three really in England types of trampoline clubs, I guess you'd call them, that you could do. You've got a trampoline club, which is set up by British Gymnastics, and then you've got a trampoline session, open session sort of thing you could do at a leisure centre. Both of which would be in a leisure centre or school facility. So the club would hire out from the school, say, pay £10, £20, £30 an hour for the hall or a part of the hall, and club can do that, and then the club stores equipment somewhere. Or it's a leisure centre, basically the same thing. That's what I'm doing at the moment. And then you've got the third one, which is the dedicated centre, which is you own the building, kind of like a trampoline park, but it's not a trampoline park. Uh, and that obviously is all of the building costs. The dedicated center bit is like the gold standard for most trampoline coaches and what they want because then they don't have to set up and pack down the trampolines every single time they have a session. But obviously, that's very expensive. And the person that I met you close to you, speaking with Jacob actually quite a bit at the moment, they took about 3 years to set up a dedicated center, which is pretty short because they've managed to get a center in 3 years. But
Yeah,
he'd been coaching for I want to say like 11 years before that at different
nice.
clubs as a coach at another club. Um, whereas I still technically am not a coach, a trampoline coach, because I'm still doing my level one. I've submitted all the stuff and my assessments next month. But yeah, so I'm not actually a level one, I'm a level zero, which is why I have another coach with me because we need to have people qualified to coach the skills, etc., by British Gymnastics regulations, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, so I've started a trampoline club with no qualification, basically. That I think is different, and quite difficult, as you can imagine. And the funding, obviously, for equipment, working through all of that. And yeah, it's been fun. It's been a challenge. And like I say, without
Mm.
Morgan, I would have fallen to pieces because there's been a lot of small things to do.
Yeah, it's kind of very similar to me. So obviously, neither one of us have been around for the last couple of weeks. One, we recently lost a family member, so that was crazy and just
Mm.
happened out of nowhere, and so there was all the grief to go through.
Or
But
that,
also at
that
the same
doesn't it
time,
doesn't really finish.
well, yeah, yeah, exactly. The continuation of just grief and feelings that occurred, and then literally, it was my second day as a contractor for a company that I just had joined. when I found out. And so we had two quite massive life stuffs happening at the same time. And so, yeah, without Morgan, I would be even more of a mess than I was. It was definitely challenging, but it was really nice to have Morgan on hand and the tools around me on hand to be able to just go make it work, put it somewhere, help me get the stuff that I need to get done that matches my energy levels, that matches kind of where I'm at and what I can do and when I can do it.
Yeah. I mean, when I look at my calendar for the last couple of months, or when I look back and reflect, because obviously I can just show the completed task and have a look back, it is absolute chaos. Like there
Mm,
is at least two tasks every hour, every single
yeah.
hour. I've got events in there where I'm meeting someone, or I'm driving somewhere, and I'm like, I drive somewhere, then I do a task before I meet the person. I meet the person, then I do another small task before I go home. Then I go home, I get back, and then I'm doing something else. Like it's just constantly going. Um, so my day has literally been from 9 till 9, but instead of it being all online and writing and researching, it's all over the place. And
So
look,
how is your like energy, like exertion, we'll use that. That's the better
yeah,
term anyway, like more effective term. How has your exertion kind of relationship changed? Like how you thought you would when it came to the energy, and how did you manage that as it's swiftly changed? Because I found that at first I was like, cool, I'll be fine. Now grief comes in waves and never really ends. So it's really one of the things that I've been struggling is trying to keep track of that because it's all of a sudden. Because obviously you've got just day-to-day businessy stuff, like my business, the work that I do for a contractor now, then the grief, and then obviously my own kind of like health long-term stuff that happens anyway. So it was really
life.
interesting. And in fact, using RPE has really helped make me go, ah, yeah, so I'm overexerting to an nth degree. I'm going to have to slow down and I'm going to slow down quickly because if I don't, something's going to happen.
I'm intrigued. Before I answer that question, how are you using RPE? Obviously, we've spoken about it, and I think the last time we spoke, you sort of had a light bulb moment, as it were, on
Yeah, so
practical use.
uh, basically I'm using it at the moment most of the time on a task by task basis as it helps me. I've also kind of tweaked it for me. So I've split it up actually instead of one number it's three because I was often finding like and in fact it's not numbers anymore. I've just started using red, orange, and green because the numbers just were getting annoying and I didn't need to do that. It was just like, where am I? Am I red? Am I orange? Am I green? And so I've been using that to help just check in with myself quickly as I'm doing stuff, as I'm kind of like, okay, cool. There are 15, 20 tasks in my task list. There are another five I haven't put on this task list yet because they've just come out of nowhere. Where am I at? Am I red here? Like, am I social kind of red? Have I got everything that I need in front of me? So environmentally, like, have I got everything that I need? And how am I just in the desire to actually do the thing, like the taking of the action. Am I ready for that? And so I had all three, and I've kind of just been measuring all three and going, cool, okay, so if this is the case, then maybe I need to readjust this. So what would happen if I move this task to tomorrow, if I move this task, and kind of using that as just like a grounding exercise because at the moment everything's nuts in just every single possible way. Everything is very much crazy. And so that's how I've been using it. I split it up, blew it up into three because I think eventually it will go back to one, but it's a really nice exercise to like get me thinking about all three.
Yeah. The reason I asked you is because that's how I started using RPE. I still use the numbers, but I split it up into it wasn't the same sort of buckets, but similar sort of buckets. Now I'm at a point where it's just this is how I'm feeling because I'm familiar. I have
Hmm.
expertise and I've gained expertise over time. So when you say how am I managing it, managing my energy, I'm like the same way I did before. there's no difference because it's the same framework. It's ecological dynamics. It's using RPE to measure how much energy expenditure that I've done, that I'm expecting to do.
Mm,
And I mean, some of the tasks that I've got that I had on my task list, I put off for like 3, 4 days because it's not that I couldn't do it, I could do it. But if I had, I knew I would have been pushing my limit, and then either the next morning would have been really bad or the evening would have been bad. And it's just, you know what, it's not worth it.
yeah, yeah.
And I think because I've been doing it for so long, it's just simple. It's not easy,
Mm.
it's simple. And
Yeah,
with
I think
Morgan, it makes it easier.
that I think is the thing as well. Like I didn't have to, obviously I explained it because one, I'm turning it into something because I'm a business owner. I help people do stuff like this. So I'm turning it into something. So that
Reference
helps.
me.
I know. Huh?
Reference me.
Yeah, I will. Of course I will. Um,
Put your
and
references, sources.
exactly. Sources this podcast. It would probably be this podcast. It's the easiest way of doing it. And so it's been really nice because when everything has been rotten and horrible sometimes, because it just is, it was nice to be able to go, yeah, this makes sense. I can move this around. I can shift this around. I can see where it just gave me that space to go, okay, cool. So if I'm going to do this now, this will happen tomorrow. Am I comfortable with that? Am I happy with that?
Hmm.
Mm, okay, cool. That's how we're going to work. Some of the time it was a no, but the circumstances meant that I just kept going, but I knew where I was heading. And it was nice at the beginning of the week. I reflected with a friend and I was like, this weekend nothing's happening outside of this podcast recording, which I don't find as high energy, like high output anyway, because it's just nice to just sit and chat. I am just going to do nothing and just relax with a friend, and that's about it. Spend time with my kids who I've barely seen, which is hard at the moment.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's been really nice to have something to not, yeah, it's almost like grab onto and gravitate to when things are a little bit out of control and not as structured and organized as usually it would be, and when the environment just changes incredibly rapidly.
Well, it's
On
interesting
it,
you say not structured because it is structured through Morgan.
I suppose it is structured, yes, but it's also maybe what I mean by that is in the traditional approach of structure or the assumed approach of like everything being put in a project or a thing or an object and then organizing your dashboard and planning. Like that's kind of what I'm meaning. Like sitting down and planning things out and putting it all in, like not doing the thing, sitting down and planning the thing. That's probably a more accurate representation of what I'm trying to say. It's like it's organized, but not in the way that you would approach it if you approach it in the traditional sense of like, I need to sit down and plan my week because if I don't plan the week, I won't be able to store all this in my memory and I will blah 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 blah. Instead, it's like there is chaos. Cool. What can I see? What will I do? Okay, I've done this now. What do I see? What do I do? What do I perceive? What opportunities do I have right now? Not many because I'm absolutely bloody shattered. Cool. All right, what opportunities for that do I have? Cool. I can go and sit in the other room and just play a little bit of a video game with a friend. Or okay, cool. I can't do that right now because of these things. Like it allowed me just to roll with the punches in a way that still has structure, I suppose, I think, in reflection.
I would describe that as dynamic organization because you're dynamically organizing. You're self-organizing, as we would describe in ecological
Yeah.
psychology. You're self-organizing for the situation you find yourself in, rather than trying to predict what it is that
Mm.
you want to do or you're
Not
going
a
to do.
chance to predict at the moment. And I don't know whether there ever really is a chance to predict what's going to happen.
Ecological psychologists would suggest not really.
Yeah, like I don't think you can. Because even when things are relatively stable, shall we say, there's still stuff that comes up and happens.
I mean, if you're
because
taking a
that's a
mathematical approach, yes, there are likelihoods of things that are going to happen, but still, you can't really be accurate enough. And if there are errors, i.e., prediction errors from
yeah,
information processing, if those things do happen, you need to be able to adjust. And that's where
yeah.
self-organization is pretty important. And I think so for me, when I describe my organization, it is self-organized. Like I problem solve, I
Mm,
troubleshoot
mm,
as I see the issues arising, as
yeah.
I perceive the issues arising, whatever word you want to put in there. And
Mm.
I feel from your conversation, like this conversation, well, either you're moving or you've moved that way. Because
Moved, definitely. Oh, well, we're always continuing all the time, but like, yes.
because previously, whenever I saw your calendar, it looked very no, not mechanistic, but it looked like, right, I'm going to do this here, going to do this here, going to do this here.
Mm,
And when you asked me, how do I do it? I'm like, well, I sort of just figure it out, like, because there isn't
mm,
I'm going to plan. And it felt like you had a bit of friction with my answers there. But
mm.
from the conversation, like just now, it almost seems like you're doing what I'm doing. It's sort of just, I think I could do that then. I think I can do that then. And you sort of like, you plan as the day goes on because you
Yes,
have all the information available to you in Morgan and go, you know what? Affordances right now here.
yes. I think it's been really nice to lean into like RPM or whatever you want to call it, like RPM. No,
RPE.
RPE. Like lean into that philosophy of practice of like, where am I at? And I have, as you noticed, like it's still new to me in many ways. So I'm still learning how to make it work for me and changing things so that it's easier for me to understand. And I'm excited of like seeing it develop and how it's helping me to just self-organize everything that I'm doing, which is
Yeah.
fun because it just means that without it, I would be a mess. And without it, I would be a mess at the moment.
So
So it's,
I guess obviously don't answer this if you don't want to. I'm curious if if you were in that situation, like the situation you're in, say last year, how do you think the response would have been different? Because this time last year you were obviously a different person. We all were.
mm, I think it would be, I mean, let's be real, it's not been easy even with everything that I've had,
Mm.
but it I would have probably spiraled far quicker and probably would not have been able to just get as much done as I did because I would have just completely burnt myself out and just overtrained, overexerted to a degree where I would just make myself ill. Whereas this time I was able to kind of make more informed decisions. Because of course I'm still new, I recognized like it was about halfway through the week when I was starting to burn out. And I was like, something's happening. Let's just take like it was a moment. It was a moment of like, okay, let's look up what I could do right now. I could make a choice to just do what I used to do or make a different decision. And so it was kind of within the middle of the first week out in this last 2 weeks, but in the middle of the first week, I was like, I'm not doing good right now. What's going on? And I was able to use that to help me direct. A year ago, not a chance. I would have been a very, well, even more of an unhelpful person to be around. I would have just been really fed up and annoyed, and I would not get work done
Yeah, because
and
I
just
went
shut down.
through. So in my first year of college, so I'm like 16, 17, I went through not the same struggle, obviously, a similar struggle, and that went through up until my undergrad, and I was spiraling for like 2 years. So I just didn't really, it wasn't obvious externally, but internally I
Mm,
was a mess. It's what led to a lot of my
yeah.
mental health struggles in my first year of uni, and the ecological dynamics approach, the affordances, the constraints. I didn't have these words at the time,
Mm,
but it was the philosophy, it was the framework that was being discussed during my undergrad. It wasn't until I'd hit, I guess, a similar moment to you. It was like a couple of weeks. I was extremely struggling. I was almost not going to be here, and I just sort of sat back for I think it was like a couple seconds up on a beachy head. If you're familiar with Eastbourne, it's a very big cliff, and I was on the edge, and I was sitting there, and I was like, you know what, let's have a think, and I did have a think, and obviously I'm still here, so it worked. Uh, but yeah, and it was almost like a recognition of actually, no, if I think like this, and I take it as I see it, rather than trying to predict everything that's going to happen and stop all the bad things, and yeah, just it works. Um, which I think matches quite nicely with what I did last week, and the community around the freestyle trampoline. I know this is a bit of a sideways thing here, but when I turned up, I didn't know anyone. I hadn't met anyone in person. Um, and I know that's going to scare some people. Flew out to this foreign country, staying in this hostel that I know no one in. Like I was staying in a room with six people in the room. I was one. The other five didn't know who they were. Um, and yeah, so I flew out to this country not knowing anyone apart from speaking to a couple of people via email, and one person via WhatsApp. Flew out there, and then on the first day on Thursday, I was sitting, getting ready to watch all these athletes get ready to train and prep for the world champs. And as they sort of came in one by one, every single person was met as a family, even though they'd come from different countries and they only knew each other from like Instagram and other events. It was almost like a long lost friend or a family member. It was high fives, it was hugs, it was like cheering. Everyone embraced everyone as a family member. I'm like, wow, wow, that's big. Even the adults that were there to judge were meet and greet like they were part of the community, part of this thing, um, and every person I spoke to was the same, and it just it reminded me that yeah, actually, ev everything can be fun if we sort of just take a step back, and even though it was a competition, community first, like they were competing against each other, but they were celebrating the skill. Irrespective of who it was, whether they're on the team, not on the well, I say the team, from the country, not from the country, countries didn't matter, labels didn't matter, competitions didn't matter, winning didn't matter. It was just they did something cool. Let's celebrate that. And I feel like when we're by ourselves, it's very hard to sort of celebrate that.
Mm.
But from the approach that I've taken with the way that I approach behavior, the way that I act and coach, um, and just interact with other people, I can almost like when we get on a call, it feels similar to that environment. It's like, oh, like
Mm.
having a chat, having a go with a conversation with a friend, not, oh, we need to get this podcast out.
Mm.
No,
It's very
that makes
just
sense.
yeah, it is. That's what I was saying. It's like one of the things that was like, cool, we got a podcast today. It's never been a case of like, I have to get this done. We have to do this. This is required. This is a this. This is a that. This is pressure and stress. It's very much like a community conversation. It's so much more of just us chatting and sharing ideas and sharing thoughts and sharing experiences and then just carrying on with our day.
I mean, I don't know about you, but I learn a lot from the conversations because you don't normally have long-ish conversations with other individuals because it's just not the done thing. I don't know whether it's
Mm.
just an English thing or it's just a person thing, but everyone does the hi, how are you? Yeah, I'm good, fine. How are you? Yeah, I'm good, thanks. And that's it. Like everyone does that. Like the almost the mandatory interaction when you see someone. Or the oh, how are you doing? Yeah, I'm good. Oh, what are you doing at the moment? Oh, I'm working, I'm doing family stuff. Oh yeah, that's great. It's all shallow and surface. For me, it's boring.
Mm.
I prefer
Yeah.
more in-depth conversations like this. I'm actually finding I'm having more of those conversations because I'm not coaching in person, because obviously I'm going to meet other coaches and we're having those conversations. I I'm looking forward to having more of these sort of, I guess, community conversations rather
Mm.
than it's not competition conversations, but it's like the traditional shallow, boring rubbish.
Yeah, I had a serious I blah, 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 blah. Mm. I agree. I've had very similar experiences, like throughout all the chaos, because it's been chaos the last couple of weeks. There have just been times just sitting and having nice conversations and just having those deep dives into stuff. And rather than the shallow nonsense, like the coaching has been really good. It's been really fun to be able to just coach throughout all of this and be able to have good conversations with people and just chatting with people about big things and interesting things and what's going on things rather than just that surface level like, yeah, how are you? Yeah, no, I'm good. I get very bored.
This is actually why. So for those unfamiliar with Eastbourne Trampoline, our motto, as it were, mantra, is fun first. Just two words, fun first. If you want to add three more on there, community over competition. But it's fun first. And the most recent research that I've read and found on fun gives 11 fun factors. I don't know whether you're familiar, John, but I did a video about it. Obviously, it came out while you were doing your thing or having, obviously, struggles. But the I don't want to say the most important, but the one that came up the most and was number one on the list for things being fun was trying hard. So
Mm,
you'd think, oh no, 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 fun isn't trying hard. Fun's like messing around, goofing around, and not paying attention and blah blah. No, no, actually, fun was trying hard and trying hard for the individual. And for me, if we look at the conversations that we're having, trying hard goes beyond the shallow conversation.
mm,
So again, this is me guessing here, me speculating, but those individuals that are interested in having conversations want to try hard in the conversations. So explore topics they're not that familiar with or exploring, or learning about something they're new to.
mm,
So when I was talking to some of the parents yesterday, they did trampoline at school, like however many years ago. Like, oh yeah, do a seat drop. And because I don't want to rant about trampoline coaching now, but because it's been very constrained in the past, legs straight, arms here, do this, do that. That's how the parents were trying to help the children. And all I said was, well, can they land on their bum and get back to their feet? Not can you do a seat drop or can you do a seat landing
mm,
or can you land in this position and then get back? No, can you land on your bum and get back to feet? And that was it. And the parents, some of the parents that I had conversations with, they were asking, well, don't your legs need to be straight? I said, no. If you land on your bum, get back to feet, you've done it. Oh, well, don't you have to be on the cross? Well, no, not unless you're going to be competing. Oh, and I was challenging their previous beliefs about what trampoline is and was. And I feel like that is an element of trying hard in a conversation because it's challenging beliefs, it's challenging what they think. And granted, that's only very small, but it builds a platform for those conversations in the future.
mm,
Because one of the boys, I think was it 4 or 7? I think it was 7. Um, and they were struggling to go on their bum and get back to feet. And what I said to the parents was, well, try and get him just bouncing on his bum. Now, when you say that, oh, just get bouncing on the bum, like that's not a skill. There's no ideal
just fun.
technique there. It's literally just them exploring landing on their bum. And I don't know whether the parents cottoned on because I'm more familiar with the skills, so I can attune to the information better because I have expertise. But the reason the boy wasn't doing from feet to bum to feet was when they were landing on the bum, their weight was backwards. So they landed on their bum and they just rolled backwards. And when they were landing on their bum multiple times, the first couple, their weight was backwards and they stopped, and then they went again and then they backwards and stopped. And then they leant forwards. And this is a 7-year-old that doesn't talk, that's got, I don't know how to word this, suspected autism.
Mm,
Um, but yeah, so they're 7, they don't talk, they don't normally respond to people, commands, instructions, anything like that. But I just said try and land on your bum multiple times. It was just like bounce on your bum. Um, And after like I say, the first couple of going backwards, they started leaning forwards, and then they got three and four and five. I was like, oh, can we get 10 bum bounces? And no, we didn't get to 10 bum bounces, but they got to six and then stood up. And then completely ignoring the bum bounces, they just went from feet to bum to feet. And you're like,
Mm,
so I didn't want them to do from feet to bum to feet. I just wanted them to do the bum bounces. But they recognized, oh, I can't do feet bum feet. You just told me to bounce on my bum. I'm bouncing on my bum. Oh, I need to bounce on my bum like this. Maybe I can. And they set themselves the challenge, self-organizing, to go feet bum feet. And then they did. They did. I didn't tell them to do anything. All I asked them to do was, can you bounce on your bum?
mm,
And that's the individual self-organizing the problem to complete the skill, if you want to call it a skill.
mm,
And I think, hope, the parents recognized and understood that. And that to me is coaching.
mm,
That's ecological coaching. And from the session yesterday, I guess as a bit of feedback, the first session, there were meant to be six people jumping, and we have a maximum for 12, so three per trampoline.
mm.
There were 11 people jumping because siblings of people that were booked on got on the trampoline.
Oh, nice.
So we had siblings get on. One of the parents got on as well. They'd obviously trampoline before, probably at school or something. He did, I don't know what to call it. It wasn't a flip when it comes to like freestyle trampoline, but it definitely wasn't a somersault in traditional. It was, we'll call it a flip. It was 360 degrees from feet to feet forwards, and also did one backwards.
Nice.
But yeah, like I would probably describe it as a flip, but it was controlled, it was safe because so this is one of those things. Tell me to shut up if you want me to stop talking, so I could talk about this for hours. But this is one of those things that makes what we are doing at Eastbourne Trampoline a little bit different. Is we've
Mm,
got mixed sessions. So people older than 16 and younger. Obviously, we've got DBS. We're sorting out DBSs as well for appropriate ages and safeguarding, etc., etc. But what it allows us to do is say, well, if parents want to jump with the kids, they can. Um, and so we had an adult, like 30 plus, probably adult, year adult, jumping with his two kids. So his two kids were off on the same trampoline, just watching him jump because it's three on the trampoline, boy, girl, and him. So it's like the family have the trampoline. I go around and help where need be, where I see, give them ideas. But I'm giving literally I am giving them the environment to explore, and that's what the aim is for Eastbourne Trampoline. I think it's like encourage exploration on Olympic trampolines, and I'm like, there you go do it.
so cool.
Yeah, and from the session, like I say, 10 people jumping, everyone everyone had smiling faces. Like I don't know whether it's true, whether it's not true. All I know is from what I saw, and obviously because it was the first session, I was trying to manage everything. I was like very much trying to look at everything at once and think about all the things that I need to do and everything. But from what I saw, everyone's faces were smiling. I didn't see anyone like frustrated or unhappy, which I think for me is a success. And to quote one of the parents, I've been told we will see you next week. Uh, So I think the kids said that they're going to go next week. And I guess to quote one of the children, Mum, I'm staying in the next session, aren't I? And she said, not this week, because they'd only booked on for the free trial. But yeah, so I think it all went positive.
Mm,
Um,
so cool.
but yeah, like I say, if you're down in Eastbourne, you can join in.
Yes, let me make the 4 hour drive. Four?
Oh, it depends on traffic. I mean, my drive back from you when I visited, it was
Oh yeah,
seven and
but
a
no,
half
it's
hours.
7. Yeah.
7.5 hours,
Yeah,
so I
let
was
me
stuck
make
in
that.
congestion.
Yeah, let me make that drive, considering
Take
I can't drive. Um, Let's just chuck my family in a car and drive to Eastbourne.
Well, you could at some point, maybe someday, or maybe when you're down in London for a conference, you could pop down for an evening.
Well,
But,
that's a good idea. That's just
but
if I can get to a
oh yeah,
conference at the moment.
well, yeah. I'm not thinking now. I'm thinking like in future, maybe 2025, assuming the trampoline is still going, which hopefully it will be. Obviously, like we've only done one session. It seemed positive, but yeah, and I
It must
think
have been so cool.
yeah, one of the this might be odd to hear from other coaches. It'd be interesting to hear other coaches' perspective on this actually. One of the biggest like yes moments for me with the feedback had nothing to do with what the kids were doing, had nothing to do with what the parents were doing, had nothing to do with how the session times ran, what the skills were done, or anything like that. When I heard or when I read this, I was like, yes, that's what I want. I liked the vibe.
Mm,
Now, to me, that that shows that the people in the environment were comfortable and they were given the autonomy to explore for me. Um, and the vibe, the feeling is hard to explain.
mm,
But because it's hard to explain, it's hard to manufacture and create. It
yeah.
has to be fostered through the constraints that you set up in the environment. So
Yeah.
if I step back from practice design of this 40-minute session or practice design for this 2-minute session of this person, my practice design for Eastbourne Trampoline has these constraints and affordances which I hoped would allow for free exploration.
Mm,
And for them saying, I like the vibe,
mm.
tells me that I've set the constraints up well. And yeah, that was hearing that, I'm like, yes.
Mm.
Now I've just got to do it again and again and again.
That's so cool. That's so exciting.
So, but yeah, I must admit, I reckon the next session will be slightly easier because the so the way I run the sessions to give them autonomy but control is with a timer. So every trampoline has a timer, and I give the timer to the people on the trampoline. So whether it be the child that's old enough to use the timer or the parent that's standing by the trampoline, um, but because it was the first time they'd used the timers, some some of them pushed buttons that they didn't need to, or they stopped it and then it went the other way, or they went back to the clock, or yeah. So I think I spent like 15 minutes in like 3 hours just sorting out timers. Um, but I think once they're familiar with the timers in the next session, people can help each other work out the timers, and then it's what I'm setting it up to be is there's trampolines, there's timers. I've signed you in, go play, and I will mull around with the other coach. So there'll be two coaches mulling around. Um, Rather than a right, I ticked you in, you're going to do this skill for this session, this skill in this part of the session, this skill in this part of the session, you're on that trampoline with that person, you're going to do this when you're, yeah, far too many rules. And I feel like the timers give enough constraint for the trampoline.
Mm.
Because tell me if I'm wrong, I don't think someone's going to deliberately hurt themselves.
Oh yeah, probably.
Probably as in someone's going to deliberately hurt themselves, or
Oh
probably
yeah.
they won't. Okay. Oh, I can see your face. Yes, yes, yes. For context, the face told me it was sarcasm.
Just a little bit, just a tiny weeny little bit of sarcasm.
But I think that's the biggest worry with a lot of people with the ecological dynamics and ecological psychology approach. Give them too much freedom, bad
Mm,
or risky, health and safety, etc.
mm.
I mean, this could sound scary for some people, but I left a competent girl on a trampoline with no spotter. So what that means is there are four sides to a trampoline. One side there was a big mat. The other side there was a bigger mat. The other length side was another trampoline, and then there was a length side, which is like a 1.5 meter drop to the floor. And I left her for, I don't know, 10 minutes, just jumping around, practicing, learning. Didn't get close to the side of the trampoline once. But some people would look at that and be like, you need to be standing, you need to be spotting. Like, I trust that person doing those skills. For me, that's a confidence boost when I'm on the trampoline and people are confident enough just to wander away. Don't know if it's the same for other people. But if I've got people there like, oh my God, you're gonna fall off, like that makes me scared.
Yeah, because then you're like, okay, cool. Then you're going to spend all your time focusing on
Not falling
not
off.
falling off, which does what? Make you feel like you're about to fall off.
Yeah, makes you scared. I
Mm,
think that's another part of the vibe. Like, understandably, parents to start with. Again, tell me to shut up if you want me to. um, but the parents were scared of like, oh no, you're gonna fall off, or oh, you need to stay in the middle, and there was an air of fear with the parents to start with.
mm,
I mean, these are Olympic trampolines. They are bigger than garden trampolines. They are far bouncier than garden trampolines. We got a 4-4 in there, which is very bouncy. But after a couple of minutes, the parents eased up. And I think that potentially is because of the vibe I was giving off, the vibe the other coaches were giving, well, the coach was giving off, which created the relaxed environment, which I like.
mm, mm.
So,
Trust and expertise.
mm, mm, yeah. Is there anything else you wanna riff on? You wanna talk about? Because I've just spoken about trampoline for like 20 minutes.
Nothing I can
Yep,
yet,
understandable.
which is annoying.
Yes. We spoke about Morgen to start.
Morgan's fun. It's so good.
Yeah. Good. I'm treating my sunburns from Barcelona. Oh,
Ooh.
something that you might be interested in, that you might want to ask questions about or just
Mm.
discuss is I'm going to the summit, the ASB summit.
Okay, yes. Why?
To put it bluntly, and I think I can say this, Tiago is helping me with the ticket. Um, so I don't have to pay as much as I thought I was going to have to pay, and the trampoline situation is the only one I really needed to manage to not go. And I feel more comfortable because I will have two coaches there, and I feel more comfortable with the sessions as they are with the people that we have right now.
Mm,
Um, the head coach can manage. Like the next session will probably tell me more, but I feel like we can manage without me there because
mm,
it shouldn't require me there.
mm,
Um, so yeah, so I got the freedom at home. I don't have to pay as much as I thought, and I figured why not?
mm.
Um, but yeah, so it's going to be certainly an interesting experience going out to LA, experiencing other PKMers in person.
Yeah, that is going to be interesting.
Is there anything you
I
want to?
I would be so intrigued at the conversations because a lot of the well, my experience of the PKM space has been very much in the traditional like do all of these things in these ways so that you have all of these things in these ways so that they work in this way and just follow my 5-step approach and not really anything that we speak about. So it'll be really interesting to see the experience. Like, I can't wait to know about it. Here, just a snippet of what the conversations you're gonna have with people as you basically just go, so what if this?
Well, I feel like a lot of the people, well, a lot of the people that I've spoken to anyway, which is not a lot of the people that are going, but they will intuitively, however you want to use that word, um, use ecological approaches because the way that we would describe the world is through an ecological lens. So
Yeah.
it's not you choose to do it or you choose not to do it, it's you're doing it. That's the explanation that I would use.
Mm.
So I will explain things through ecological language. If they choose to use language from cognitive psychology, that's entirely fine. But if there are conflicts in our explanations, then I will add my questions. I will query. If they don't know the answer to the query, well, then I would look to explain it through ecological psychology to see if I'm accurate. If I am accurate, well, now I can explain something that they are struggling to explain through ecological language. And that is how I see a lot of the interactions going, because from my experience talking with some of the people that are going to be presenting, they present cognitive psychology, but
Yeah.
they enact ecological psychology, and the arguments and behaviors they make are explained and justified through ecological psychology and not so much cognitive psychology. But I think that's because of the lack of depth of understanding of cognitive psychology. It's like they know the buzzwords, but they
Mm.
don't know what the buzzwords mean. So when they
Hmm.
explain the buzzwords, they're not actually explaining what the buzzword means, they're explaining something else, which again, they try and attach to some label or word they found. Processing, retrieval practice, recall. Like, okay, go deeper. You're not actually doing that.
Mm.
So that's how I see the conversations going, but we'll have to see.
I That's gonna be fun. Have
Mm,
loads of fun.
yes. Yeah, definitely. Right. If there is anything else you want to add, say it
No?
now. Hmm. Maybe. See you all next week.
Maybe. Who knows anymore? Bye.